Welcome back, everybody. Thank you to our corporate culture session number 2. Tonight, we are going to start with some housekeeping, and AJ is going to take us through some really important details.
Yes, so welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and the people who are living in Minnesota are doing well with the cold weather there. This session will end a little different, and we're going to have an expert panel at the end, so keep your questions ready for that. As usual, we're going to start our session with some housekeeping, as Lisa said. So first, I want to remind everyone that we're recording the session, and we would love it if you guys could be on camera, so it would help us build community. Second, I want to go into a little more detail tonight about the participants' assessment status. So first, I'll talk about a confidence assessment. We have 2 confidence assessments, one at the beginning of the program and another at the end of the program. The beginning of the program's confidence assessment, only 13 people have completed that out of 21 people. So you're also going to fill out the confidence assessment at the end of the program. It will help us to understand how effective our program is. Tomorrow, I'm going to send you the confidence assessment, so I hope everyone could fill that out. Second, the participants' involvement in the learning assessments are not that good, I would say. Out of 21 people, only 3 individuals have done wellness sessions learning assessment. 8 individuals have completed the resume session learning assessment. 6 people have done the LinkedIn assessment. 7 people have done the impression management learning assessment. 3 people for the networking, and we have 2 people who've done the corporate culture part 1 sessions learning assessment. So tomorrow I'm going to send all the assessments to everyone. Please give it some time and complete them. And thank you for that. Lisa, I think you have not shared the slides, so could you also share the slides?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can see that.
I think
I can see it.
There we go. How's that?
Yeah, now it's better. So could you advance the slide to the first poll? Great. So yeah, we have a poll, and in this poll, we will get to know a little bit about your interaction with your resume coach. If you have not contacted your resume coach yet, please reach out to me, because we have the employer presentation on March 21st, and we want your resume to be ready by that. So now I'm going to launch the poll, and then I will read the results. I launched the poll.
All right, looks like we have 9 people out of 10 who are on, who have responded. But AJ, if that's counting you and me, we should probably. I see Baketa just came in, so maybe I don't know if he'll be able to see the poll or not.
Well, I don't know that either.
All right, should I end it and then you can talk about the results?
Okay, yeah, I can also end it.
Okay.
So yeah, so our participants, so 9 people has answered the polls. Well, actually 10 people for the third question. So for the first question, I've met with my coach at least one time. So 5 people has made that, done that, and 4 people have not. The second one, I have a good draft of my resume. 7 people from our participants have a good draft of their resumes, and 2 don't have it. And for the third one, my resume is nearly finished. 9 participants, their resumes are finished, and 1 participant says no, so probably his or their resume is not finished.
All right, should I keep moving?
Yes, if you could advance the slide if you don't have anything to say. So now we have the learning objectives. The learning objectives for this session are going to be learning how the recruiting happens in the corporation in the Minnesota, understand the basics, one of the basic processes of HR, which is performance management. And as you know, you're the only person who's responsible for your career. So you will learn the key steps in managing your career. You will understand the corporate ethics, policies, and procedures. And finally, we have a panel of professionals. So have your questions ready by the end of the program so you can ask it to the professionals. And the agenda is actually the reflection of the learning objectives. So the agenda for today's session is we will go through recruiting, performance management, career development, ethics and company policies. And as I said before, we're going to have a panel discussion at the end. And yeah, we're going to have a second poll. Please share what you think are the 3 most important aspects of corporate culture. It was in the post-program assignment that you will be ready to share the 3 most important aspects of corporate culture in your opinion, and the reason for that, why those 3 aspects are the most important. So I'm going to launch the poll right now, and then I'll read the results.
All right, so it looks like we've got 2 people who have answered out of 10 who are online. Hopefully others are willing to share. If not, we can maybe if we could get a couple more answers, that would be great. I know last week we had a really good conversation about different aspects of culture that included navigating corporate and team conflict. So even if you didn't read the articles, you might have some thoughts based on what we talked about last week that could pertain to this question. So we'll give it another 30 seconds and then AJ will go ahead and debrief this poll. And then we're going to transition into our agenda for the night, which is going to feature Samia talking about recruiting. Oh, we've got more people. Thank you, you guys. Thanks for weighing in. 4 out of 4. All right, we've got 4 out of 10. AJ, do you want me to end the poll? And then, oh, we've got 5 more people are weighing in. I guess you guys are just thinking about this question, which is great. AJ, do I need to hit end poll so you can see the answers, or can you see them already?
Yeah, I can see the answer right now too. So
All right.
yeah,
All right.
whenever you want, I can read it.
Why don't you go ahead and share some of the results?
Okay. So one of the individuals said respect, fellowship, team building activities. Respect, fellowship, team building activities. Another individual said understanding social dynamics, interaction with teammates, and pace of work is useful, as it will make it easier to work on a day-to-day basis. One other individual said communications. First, communications. Second, team-oriented. And third, supportive.
Mm.
Another person said innovation, trust, success. And finally, one other participant said leadership, employee development, and teams building.
All
Yeah,
right, so
all that.
definitely some themes there. The one that I kept hearing over and over was communication. And maybe that's something that we can come back to at the end when we close out, which is not that far away, you guys. We're way more than halfway past our sessions, but communication, leadership, and just being able to connect with each other seems to be a theme. So I think those are things that would be good for us to have discussion about as we close out on the 28th, which seems like it's far away, but it isn't that far away. So thank you, AJ, for those polls and sharing the results. And now, Samia, this part is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, my name is Samia. If you haven't heard of my introduction from part 1, I'm just going to introduce myself quickly again. So this is Samia Ali, and I am a talent acquisition specialist. And I volunteer at this great organization for Lisa. So let's get into the recruitment process. As we have shared here on the screen, you see there are 6 steps to recruitment process. There are planning, searching, screening, selecting, hiring, and of course, lastly, onboarding. With the planning, of course, not every company would do that, or organization. However, being in the HR, we are hoping that all organizations and companies do follow directions and policies, of course, and do things accordingly. So planning, for example, would be like, for example, in my company that I work for at the moment, we do 6 months planning for our recruitment, and more of a robust strategic planning process for our recruitment, which is very helpful. I think that's the best way to do it. So I like to consider my company that I'm working for a very efficient company that is very strategic, and they're very planful, I would say. So that's one thing. It's highly important to do planning. So planning within the recruitment. So for example, planning where we want to recruit. For example, let's say where I work for right now, we plan 6 months ahead, which states we want to target and getting candidates from job seekers. So depending on that area, we will strategize and go ahead and create advertisement towards that area, that region that we are focused on. So that is an example of planning ahead in a company or on or organization. 2 is searching. So searching is the next step of recruitment, and that basically means once the company or the organization has put together their strategical planning session or process, the next step is doing searching for the fit individual for the position that we have created. So the way to do that is multiple ways that companies or organizations do it, such as, for example, putting an ad on LinkedIn or maybe through Indeed, Glassdoor, all the companies that might be out there that do some recruitment, then that can be that candidates or job seekers can be exposed to our job description. So that is the searching model. Also, another way, like for example, before coming to where I'm at today, I used to do sourcing specialist. And so what I did was my main job duty, day in, day out, was just searching for fit individuals that qualified for specific positions that we were hiring for. So some companies do hire a specific person that's delegated just doing searching for candidates. And some companies just do it all together as a teamwork and kind of delegate work in a rotation form. So that's one way. 3 is screening, of course. After you find the correct individuals or they apply to the jobs, then the next step is screening those individuals' resumes. So day in, day out, I used to do a lot of resume screening. I still do that up to date. I actually love doing resume screenings because you'll see some funny resumes and some very qualified, highly educated individuals. So I love screening resumes all day long and kind of seeing which one. So we don't have time as a recruiter or as a sourcer. I don't normally get enough time to go through all of those resumes. So we have, of course, applicant tracking system, ATS, that does all of that for us, where we look for key points or keywords within individual resumes, and then go from there. Number 4 is selecting. So once the screening part is done, then we get to select. So let's say, for example, we get 10 resumes out of 200 resumes. So out of the 10 resumes that we have selected, then now we have to even deselect out of those 3, because let's say, for example, we only have maybe 1 position open or 2 positions open. So we need to get down to only 2 people that are most qualified for the role. So that would be number 4. And number 5 is hiring the correct qualified individual. So after going through all of those planning and steps, the 5th step is definitely now saying, okay, so sometimes person like me would probably, like for example, in my role right now at the moment, I don't consult with my manager to make the hiring decision in my role at the moment. But previously role as a sourcing specialist, I consulted with the manager or the recruiter before hiring the individual, because that was not my actual job duty. So that's how the hiring process works. So we'll hire that individual that best qualifies for the role, and then go from there. Number 6 is, of course, onboarding. So once we hire the correct or the most qualified individual out of those resumes, then the next step is putting that person into the pre-employment process within our company or with any organization. So what that means basically is the onboarding process. The way it works is sending out paperwork and policy, getting maybe sometimes we have videos, some individuals, companies or organizations might have some videos for the individual to learn more about the company and the policy. Sometimes there could be some handout books to give it to the individual along with the onboarding. The onboarding sometimes could be online or it could be in person, depending on what the company wants that to be. And sometimes we have dedicated individuals who conduct the onboarding paperwork or the whole orientation. Next slide, please. Yep.
Samia, just a quick question, if you don't mind, because this
No
is
problem.
a lot. This process is a lot. Just
Yes.
to get an HR person to review a resume and then call someone.
Yep.
So when you as an HR professional are reading a resume, what is the biggest thing that makes you call someone for that step number 3 which is the screening and the selecting, I guess, leading into number 4? Like,
Yes.
what makes you want to call someone based on just reading their resume? Because everyone's working on their resumes right now.
Yes. For me, based on the job that I am, based on the job that I'm doing right now, that I'm placed in hiring for, based on that position, off the bat, by screening the resume, I know that I have to look for 3 things. Those are the only thing important to me. I don't even bother myself looking at other things when I'm screening. Those 3 things are, for example, so it's a track maintenance specialist. That's my job where I hire within the company. So I look for 3 things within those resumes. And if they don't have it, I don't even bother. I just close them up. For example, they are electrical skills, some electrical skills, mechanical skills, or lastly, if they have any hydraulic system skills. If I'm not very picky, I try to be a good screening candidate, good advocate for my job seekers. So I don't disqualify if they don't have all 3, but I'll disqualify them off the bat if they don't have any of those 3. But if they have at least one of those, I will put them into my interview selection.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that having the really specific words of people's backgrounds that match the job description is really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also what makes it easier for either the recruiter or the hiring manager to quickly, grab that resume as part of their interview and selection is having resumes that have skills at the top. So you know exactly what you're looking for. You're not even gonna bother looking at the job description, to be honest, unless it's a very high professional role. With this type of position that I hire for, they're mostly, lower to mid level. So I look at the education sometimes based on which position I feel like they should qualify. But mostly what helps me is looking at the resume at the top. If they have a qualification skills, if some of them know how to write or they get help with resume writing. So if they have skills at the top that indicates the type of skills I'm looking for, I'm just gonna grab that resume right away and pull it to the side. So that is absolutely very helpful pointer for resume writing, having that job specific. So always looking at the type of job you want to apply and then matching those keywords with your resume.
All right, sorry guys, I was flipping my printed copy. So I think that's just going to be a public service announcement for everybody who's, you're all working with resume coaches, and Samia, thank you, is a resume coach as well as a facilitator. So make sure when you're doing that top part of your resume, your professional summary has those keywords in it. And you've got below that, what your skills are, so that just jumps out to the recruiter. So we're gonna keep moving here to an article that I hope you all had a chance to look at. If you didn't, we're still gonna spend a few minutes on it. So recruiting and hiring process article. What was the most useful information? Samia, what do you think about this article?
So I kind of glanced through it. Actually, I didn't read the whole thing, but I kind of glanced through it. I definitely do agree with some of the things, most of the things that actually the article stated, such as the hiring process. I kind of actually took a note here. Let me see if I could find it. Slide 8. Yep, so some of the performance management, the best practices, goals, expectations. I thought it was it's definitely a good article to highlight, and for people, who wants to really get to know about the hiring process, to kind of give them some overview of what to expect.
All right, anyone else want to weigh in on any thoughts about this article?
The only thing that I would ask is there any difference on how we should approach the first interview with recruiters when they're approaching us or when we are applying to the job? Like, do we just do the same steps on both of them, or do we make things differently, I guess? Because I want to assume that if they are approaching us, it's because we already kind of match the profile that they're looking for. So is that something that we should be handling different when we're presenting ourselves?
That's a great question, Marco. So I think it depends on what the circumstances are. So can you say a little bit more about what you're thinking? Because if you have already sent a resume in and they're reaching out to you.
No, well, I was just thinking for like when LinkedIn, you get all these recruiters that are asking for you, or like all the headhunters, recruiters, etc. They ask for your first meeting, and they already know a bunch of what you're already doing because they already went through your LinkedIn and they already looked at that. Whereas where you're going and applying from start, you need to sell yourself. So that's what I was saying, that do we need to focus on specific things when we're doing that, or do we just try to maintain it more neutral? I guess that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah, I think so people, when you're on LinkedIn, you've got a good profile and you're already out there, you're going to get people contacting you all the time, and how you handle that is up to you. If you have a really specific, like we've been talking about in our networking sessions, if there's somebody really specific that you want to reach out to, or you want to ask a contact to introduce you to, then I would say if that's more of a one-to-one connection where someone's sending your resume or your networking profile, then it would be good to follow up right away and say, you know, thank you for the introduction. I would be honored to meet with you for, again, you know, what we learned, 20 minutes. You know, 20 minutes to talk about my background and see if there's any way I can help you with your goals. So, yeah, I think it's a great question. It kind of depends. If it's more of a generic thing that someone's reaching out via LinkedIn or social media versus someone's making a really personal introduction, then you need to follow up on that and be really intentional about it. Does that help?
Yep. Thank you.
I just would like to add to your question. Sometimes you have to be aware or be informed that sometimes organizations or companies or recruiters will connect with you via LinkedIn, not specifically because they are looking for someone at that particular moment, but what they're trying to do, unfortunately, which I don't agree to with certain recruiters, what I have seen them do is build a pipeline for themselves. They sometimes are building pipeline for whatever job order they are working on at that moment, but it doesn't mean they are hiring at that moment. They just want to get as many individuals that they think would be a good fit for that pipeline of jobs that they have available, and just wanna they're doing the planning, as we discussed earlier. So sometimes they're doing their planning strategy or process, and they might not get back to you. So don't feel like you are the problem, please, because I've dealt with other individuals who went through the same problem. If you ever get approached by a recruiter and they tell you, wow, they love your resume, they like your skills and whatnot, and then even after interviewing with them, they don't call you back, that does not mean that you don't qualify for that position or you don't have skills that they're looking for. That just basically means maybe they're not ready to hire yet, and they just want to put you in their pipeline.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's something that has happened a lot, where it seems that there's a lot of interest, and then it just stops. Like there's nothing after it. So yeah, that puts things into perspective.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. That could be annoying. Yes.
All right, so moving on to performance management. What are your thoughts on this, Samia?
I love performance management. Well, of course, I love everything HR, but I'm really into performance management. Also because, you know, in the future, I am interested in becoming a hiring manager. So I think what I look at, and I'm more of a observance individual. I like observing how other leaders are handling this performance management process whenever I go to a new company. And unfortunately, I have seen individuals in companies that do not have a process placed for performance evaluations. And I've also dealt with companies who actually have great performance evaluation, and they can tell which employee is doing well and where an employee needs assistance. So it all depends on, to be honest, how well versed the individual who is managing the performance management process is with this type of area. So there could be, you know, regular employees evaluation help remind workers what their managers' expectations are, and frequently pay increase or part of performance. Like, for example, the company I work for right now is highly great at performance management. So we have quarterly pay increase. And that's based on, yeah, I know, right? I love that. We have quarterly
quarterly increases.
Yeah.
All right, you need to come into our employer presentation and be
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I take that back. We have quarterly performance evaluations.
Okay. Well,
but our increases is on a yearly basis.
Yeah, that's so good because everybody
Yeah.
knows what they're doing on a regular basis. That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yes, yes, definitely. And this company that I work for right now, there are based we have growth opportunities, and our growth opportunities are actually measured by how well we perform at our jobs, which is really awesome because I'm a great worker. So this works perfect for me. So if you are an individual, so it depends. So these are the things I feel like the performance management should be included into the company's handbooks at the orientation or onboarding. And the reason why I believe that not many companies do that, the reason why I feel like that is so that you can prepare your employees at an earlier stage as they come into the company or the organization, so they know how to do better to get to where you need them to be. Um, but unfortunately, that is not shared at the orientation or at the onboarding. But yeah, that's what the performance management process looks like. It's basically, having meetings, mostly it happens on a one-on-one meeting basis with your manager or your supervisor, whoever you report to. They go through your expectation evaluations and see how you did either quarterly or yearly, however the company puts that in their policy. And then based on that, if you did well, then there is a certain percentage of pay increase, whatever percentage that might be according to your company or organization. Next step, performance management in an organization. Sorry, I just want to make sure which slide I'm on. I'm on
Yeah, I
slide
just
10.
advanced it just to kind of do the, hopefully not all, does your company do job descriptions? Some of you, not
Yes.
everybody does, so.
Yep.
But if you don't have a job description, it's kind of hard to get a performance review that's based on what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Lisa, because I have a tendency of keeping my job description every company that I go to or organization that I work for. I always ask for, as soon as I'm hired, I ask for my job description paper. And the reason why I do that is you just never know. I like to know exactly what I'm expected to do within that specific job title, so that I'm doing well above what I'm expected. And also, it's a good way to know not other managers to cross your job description, because trust me, there are some managers that will make you do anything that's not written in your job description. So so I always like keeping a copy of my job description just to make sure. And also documentations, of course. So anytime there's performance management, the manager or the supervisor is required to keep a documentation of each employee that they have met with on their one-on-one time. We call it one-on-one in the HR department. And then also there's coaching involved. And coaching comes the time when, let's say I meet with an individual, let's say I'm a manager and I meet with an employee, and based on the conversation we had, I felt like maybe the employee needs some coaching in some areas. Of course, that's going to be something you have to address the person before you can coach them, right? So a good manager would definitely approach that in a mannerly fashion way to the employee, to let them know, okay, so maybe how do you feel like about coaching you in this area? And then that's when coaching would come in. Also training. So training that individual that the manager met with on one-on-one, the manager or the supervisor can then tell if that individual, that employee needs a training, and in which area do they need training in within the company. And then after discussing that with the employee, of course, then the manager will come up on a solution of which area they need and assign the employee in that specific training that they need to get involved in. Number 5 is the rewards. So after the one-on-one meeting and evaluating your performance management process, then if you qualify and have done your expectations, then there are rewards involved, such as the pay increase, It could be other rewards, but so far I think maybe Lisa, you could share. So far, what I've ever seen is pay increase as a reward. I haven't really seen anything else. I've only seen a merit.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think in terms of just kind of the flow of performance management, what you're saying, like the merit increase usually follows the documented performance management forms that sometimes you get to weigh in on your performance and sometimes it's just your manager weighing in on that. And then I think the other types, I think these are just different types of performance management. So there are rewards, which could be in the form of a merit increase, so a just increase in your pay. For professionals, it could be stock shares or other types of benefits. And then I guess kind of moving towards the more negative side of performance management would be corrective action. So if something's happening and you're not performing, there's different systems or processes that take place around notifying employees that they're not performing the way they should be. And that's number 6. Communication and transparency is important. This kind of goes back to what we talked about in terms of a culture. So how transparent is your boss with you? How frequently do they communicate with you? And then goal setting and performance appraisal kind of goes back to the former slide where we talked about the whole performance process. But Samia, I think it would be really helpful for us. You are our HR expert. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about number 6 and what are the typical types of correction that happens, just so people kind of know how to recognize that, because that can be something that can be very unsettling if it's not clear about how, if somebody makes a mistake, what happens after that. Maybe you could address what are the common corrective action steps that take place in a typical professional organization.
Yep. So typically, I think with number 6, with corrective action or behavior, first of all, this happens when an individual maybe is lacking, maybe unmotivated employee. But in a good organization, an unmotivated employee, those behaviors should be catched at an earlier stage, in my opinion. However, not all companies would do that. So if that behavior, for example, of that employee was not maybe seen at an early stage, and then at a one-on-one session, the manager or the supervisor realizes that, okay, this is a behavior, for instance, for example, maybe that employee has been having a behavior issue of not dealing well with others in the company, and then maybe the manager or maybe whoever that person reports to did not have the ability, or maybe was not in the right mindset to communicate with that employee, or sometimes some people just don't know how to deal with conflict and they avoid conflict until the last minute. So whatever the case is, let's say, for example, that happened, and then at the one-on-one session, the employee, the manager addresses the employee at that time. Hey, your behavior has been out of control. This has been happening. You have been doing A through Z. We have, so and so has reported this and that, all of that information. And of course, you want to talk about in detail and backup information. You don't want to just say, you did this and that. So a corrective behavior in that type of scenario would be coming to conclusion together. If that individual is a great employee that does their job duty well, but the only problem is maybe that individual don't know how to deal with people, then the best way to approach it would be, okay, so you have been doing all of this and you're a good employee, but I feel like this is an area where, you have the opportunity to improve. Do you feel the same way? And see what that individual says. And then the corrective action to take then would be coaching that individual. How can you coach that person? Maybe the supervisor or the manager cannot coach that person, but maybe someone else can be assigned to coach them. Whatever that is one way of corrective action. And then communication, of course, we talk about this a lot. Transparency is very important. So now with the communication transparency, I highly suggest that it doesn't come from one side. There always has to be from both people. You cannot expect your managers or your supervisors to be transparent with you. You also have to initiate those communication as well. I think it works both ways. That's the best way to gain transparency from both sides. Number 8, goal setting and performance appraisal. So whenever you meet, when performance management is being done by a manager, so what they do is after you all talk about, there will be goals assigned to you. So when you are discussing in that moment, mostly you will discuss goals that have been set for you maybe a year before. So the manager, then you and the manager would have a copy of your goals and where you at within those goals, maybe within that time frame, whether that is 6 months, whether that is 3 months, or whether that is a whole year. And then you discuss how you did with those goals that you have either set for yourself or that was assigned to you. So that's what the goal setting and the performance appraisal is about. So if you have achieved and your goal setting and your expectation has, went above and beyond, then yes, there will be a performance appraisal for that reason. Okay, career development. So career development, I honestly would say this is absolutely true. The fact that your manager is not responsible for your career. Yep, that is absolutely true. Because remember, when you go to a new position, you're going into that new position because, first of all, you made the effort in applying to that position for particular reasons. This is why it's highly important not to go into a job just because of the sake of the money. Because going to a job, you should be looking into developing yourself within that company, within that role. So always look at when you're applying for a position, not only from the financial perspective, but also from your career development perspective. Your manager is responsible for your output. Yes, your manager is responsible for your output, but also you have to initiate that. You can't just expect your manager, to be responsible of all of your output. You have to show that you can do the job, that you are the person for this specific position that you were hired in. You are responsible for your career. Absolutely. No matter how good and how polite and how nice of individual you are, if you are not doing anything to progress your career, to advance your career outside of your work, then no one is going to do it for you. For example, I'm going to give you guys an example on this part that you are responsible of your own career. I had people who helped me when I was starting from the lower parts of my career. And I'm forever thankful for those individuals. They're very dear to me. However, I also did my planning in how to advance my career. Yes, I got some help, but I didn't just sit there and let them only help me. They gave me the resources that I needed, and I took those resources and I developed myself even further. And one of the ways that I did that, I'm going to share with you guys right now, and you all can do this, it's very easy. It's volunteerism. I volunteer in my communities, such as what I'm doing right now. It's also a great way for me to gain network within my scope of career, but also it's a good way to put my name out there in sharing my expertise with others who really need my help without taking any money. That's another way of advancing your career, because you're teaching others what you know. That is another way of developing your career. Don't wait until annual review to come to determine your goals and accomplishments. Yes, I absolutely agree to that. You should always be in the developing, in the learning mode, is what I like to say. Always act like you are a student. Even if you think you have all the degrees in the world, you have all the certifications, you have all the trainings, you always want to put yourself in a mind state of student, because you're always developing, you're always growing. All right, 10 ways to progress in your career. Number 1, set up small goals regularly. Absolutely. That starts with your daily habits. You know, what do you do matters the moment you wake up in the morning. I like to fix, for example, I like fixing my bed as soon as I wake up before even going to the bathroom. That I just feel like when I do that, my day feels like I can accomplish the rest of the day. So yeah, small things like that is helpful. Number 2, stretch yourself. Absolutely. You want to make sure that you tell yourself that you are more than what you think you can achieve. Get feedback. Absolutely. There are people who cannot take feedback, but you know what? It's very important to learn. If you are someone who cannot take a feedback, you're not going to be able to grow. Trust me. You need to be able to take feedback from people, even if you think they're negative, because that should develop you in becoming a better person. Curate your work. Absolutely. You always want to make sure that you double check your work. Always be a listener. Always be listening. Yes. I like to say that I'm always a good listener. I like to listen to what people have to say. And then I don't react so quickly. Be curious about your industry. Yes, definitely agree. You always want to be reading articles. Don't waste your time on social media. Instead, waste your 10 minutes a day searching and researching about your field of study or your career development. I like using that one website. What is it called? onet.org. I've been using it for years. I love that website because what it does for you is you learn so much about your industry. You just type in the type of job in the future. So let's say, for example, I would like to be a hiring manager. I just type in hiring manager. I get all of this information about hiring manager. Read. Yes, though I'm lacking in reading these days, but yes, reading is highly important. You know, I used to didn't like reading until I learned that it's okay if you don't like reading, at least read the things that make you happy. That's how I learned to read all the time. So now I only read books that are more of self-developmental or career development type of books. Network. This is very important. And like I said, another way of gaining networking skills is by contributing your ideas, your skills, your expertise to communities. Trust me on this. You will gain confidence, and also you will learn some new people. You will network with other professionals, and you might even get your next job from there. You never know. Get a mentor. Absolutely. I'm so thankful and forever thankful for my mentors. I till today I keep connection with them. Having a mentor, I hope we all know what a mentor is. Mentor is someone who guides you about the steps to take, and you can talk to them openly about your career. They help you, they can guide you. You need to find someone like that within your niche. So if you're going for HR, find someone who can guide you in HR industry. If you're going for IT, find someone within that area. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, so how can I get a mentor? This is why it's important to volunteer. The easiest way to find a mentor is through volunteer work. And then it's okay to ask people, can you mentor me in this area? You will be surprised how many people are willing to do that for free. Get a mentee. Maybe Lisa could help us with this area.
Absolutely. So the kind of the flip side of being a mentor is helping someone else. So, or helping another person. So adults learn best from each other. And sometimes we think we have to have these, great jobs and be executives to be able to help other people. And that's not the case. So you can also be a mentee to someone else. And that is a really powerful learning experience. So those are ways that you can progress in your career. And I see Miriam, hello, so happy to see you here. We've got one of our panelists here already. We're moving fast tonight. This is a fast-paced session tonight. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break. And then I'm gonna breeze through a few slides, but we want to make sure that we have enough time for our panel, Miriam, Lulit, and Luis, to be here and basically serve as mentors to all of you for the end of our session here. So I'm gonna hopefully click on this the right way. We're gonna take 5 minutes and then come back. Here we go. All right, see you guys in 4 minutes and 54 seconds. All right. I think I just want to make sure that we've got everyone admitted. We're gonna cruise through Luis, Miriam, and I think Lulit is here. Our panel is here, which is amazing, and we want to save lots of time. Hi. We want to save most of the time for the three of you. So I'm going to cruise through the boring stuff, but it's still important. And then we're going to get to our panel and our panel questions, and AJ is going to moderate our panel tonight. So thank you, Samia, for all of your HR expertise the last 2 weeks.
You're welcome.
Company ethics, we're just going to hit on this quick. Ethics are how decisions are made. It's what's considered to be a conflict of interest and statements of appropriate business policies and practices. And what it's important to know that what is stated on a website in terms of ethics and what is legally okay or not can be very different in terms of what happens in the company's culture. And we've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks. So it is an important thing for you all to research as you are looking at applying for professional jobs. And it's something that would be good as you are, next week, we're going to be talking about interviewing and interview questions. In terms of ethics, it is good for you to ask, what are the ethics of an organization when you are interviewing? And then more specifically, how do those ethics show up in policies and handbooks? So a company policy and handbook is where you get a detailed overview of the policies, so how you are supposed to behave, different guidelines for behavior, your benefits. This can be everything from paid time off to your health care. It can involve expectations. It can involve legal obligations. So really technical things about if you're in a sales job, in terms of legal obligations, can you accept tickets to a sports game or not? It also tells you about your employee rights. And then as Samia was talking about, just your performance management logistics. So we talked about what's in a performance management conversation and your evaluation, but the logistics around the dates. When are you reviewed? When are you supposed to get a raise or not, if that's tied to your performance? So respectful workplace, this is important. In other cultures and other countries, there might not be as many laws around harassment and discrimination. We talked last week about microaggressions and conflict in the workplace, but there are very specific laws around discrimination, and there are specific things that constitute creating a hostile work environment. And these are things that you should understand very clearly, and know what steps to follow. You should reach out to your human resources department if you feel that you are being discriminated against. And as we talked about last week, know how you want to approach making this kind of complaint. So we are going to now move into our panel because we want to give the last up to our last 40 minutes to our panel. So tonight we have Luis Moreno. He is the Vice President, Head of Marketing and Communications at New Publica. We've got Lulit Woldelesi, who is a Volunteer Engagement Associate at Partners in Food Solutions. She is also an advisory committee member for Prosperity Ready. And then Mariam Yusuf, who is the Director of Food Safety, Quality, and Regulatory Compliance at Schwann's. So I'm going to turn it over to AJ Ahmed, but would love for each of you to quickly introduce yourselves. And I think I'm going to take it off of screen share until we go back into talking about the post work, AJ, if that's okay with you, just so we're all seeing our faces.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, Luis, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. First, thank you for the invitation, Lisa. Always nice to see you. Thank you, Ahmed. Just like you said, my name is Luis Moreno. I work at a company called New Publica. I head marketing and communications, and I'm an immigrant myself, came from Latin America back in the 90s, and have had the opportunity to work for some great companies. So happy to be here tonight and share a few thoughts to help you.
Well, that's great. So it seems that I have the pleasure of moderating this panel tonight. So next I see Mariam Yusuf. Mariam, could you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Ahmed. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mariam Yusuf. Great to see you all again this evening. I'm happy to be here. Just as Luis mentioned, I am also an immigrant. I'm from Nigeria originally, moved here over 20 years ago from Europe. I have gone through several different employment versions, and I think I have some fun experiences to share tonight. So I look forward to our discussion.
Well, thank you, Mariam. Lisa, do we have Lulit with us? Okay, so Lulit, could you please introduce yourself? I cannot actually see you, but yeah.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us, Lisa, again. Glad to be here. Yes, my name is Lulit Woldelesi. I'm originally from Ethiopia, moved here, I think now 15 years ago. I try my best not to remember the years. It's been a while now. So yeah, I'm here to share my experiences and my employment experiences in the US. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you, Lulit. So first of all, I would like to thank these great individuals for being on our panel tonight. Now that we have our panelists, I want to take a quick screenshot. I'll take a quick minute to take a screenshot. So if you guys could come on the camera, that would be great. Yeah, we totally understand that for the people who can't come on the camera, but for people who come, we would appreciate it. Well, thank you, everyone. So I got 2 screenshots and I believe we're good. So yeah, we have some questions. And the first question is actually targeted to Mariam. So after that, the other panelists could also answer. We just assigned questions to everyone just to get us started. So the first question to Mariam is that, what are the expectations for the first performance review after being hired?
Thank you, Ahmed. That's a great question. As I mentioned, I've been working for, I think, over 20 years, I guess, and I've worked with more managers than I can count. One thing I have noticed is that performance reviews remain a challenge for so many managers. They're uncomfortable. You have to sit there and look each other in the eye, talk about your performance. How did you do? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? Opportunities for improvement. They're just tough. They're tough conversations. But let me share something with you, and this is a fact. They are just as uncomfortable for the manager as they are for you sitting there. So why don't we just flip the script? Let's take control of our performance reviews. Why don't we just take control of the situation? If your manager isn't that comfortable, that's okay, because you're in control. So throughout the course of the year, keep track of your projects, keep track of your wins, your accomplishments. Early on, work with your manager to establish goals and objectives. Figure out what the expectations are for your role. And every time you have one-on-one meetings with your manager, you can talk about, hey, these are the goals and objectives. Here are my accomplishments. This is and you can track your performance against those. Even if your manager doesn't set up one-on-one meetings, you go ahead and set up one-on-one meetings. Because remember, it's just as uncomfortable for your manager as it is for you. And they would so much appreciate it if you even take charge and say, hey, I'm making it easy for you. I will put it on your calendar. We're going to meet once every month, once every other month. And even better, I will bring my agenda. I'll show you what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about these goals and objectives, and we're going to talk about performance. And you make it easy for them to share feedback to you. That way, you're also building that comfortable rapport with your manager. And when it finally comes down to the performance review, there are no surprises, because you know who's prepared? You've been prepared. You've been working for this all year long. So when you get there, you might even come prepared. You know, if there's an opportunity to do a self-assessment, that log that you've been keeping of all your accomplishments and your accolades and the projects and your wins, that's where you use that. So when you do that self-assessment and, you know, you have to answer the questions, how did you meet these objectives, or how have you shown these behaviors? You have great examples because it's all in that log you've been keeping. So you can take all the stress away from performance reviews by preparing. And that's what I mean when I say flip the script. It's super uncomfortable. Nobody likes it. And really, most people don't even do it that well. So you take control of the performance review. You keep that log. When it comes to the assessment, there's no surprise because you already know how well you've been doing because you guys talk about it all the time.
Thank you, Miriam.
So that's my feedback.
Okay, so Lulit and Louis, do you have anything to add?
I think that was a great perspective. The only thing that I can add is there's something important to understand in terms of self-awareness, is that there is a component of us that we ourselves cannot see and others can. So a lot of times we can resist feedback because someone may see something in us, you know, both in the positive and the negative side. But on the negative side, sometimes other people can see limitations that we have. And when they are expressed to us, when they are shared with us, we can create resistance. We basically don't want to hear the feedback, we feel bad about it. Sometimes even unconsciously, there's a default system in our brain to, raise a red flag. It's like, I'm under attack, right? So then you take it as a personal, attack. But it's important to understand that if you have a manager that you trust, a manager that has shown you that, they're there just to help you, to assuming that that's the case, that they're looking out for you, they got your back and all that, and they say something that is not positive, it's just like listen to it and accept it and take it and believe it and consider it. And it's not a personal attack. Somebody's just bringing to your attention something that you yourself cannot see about yourself, but others can see. And actually, one of the worst things for your performance is what it's calling leadership, the blind spots. And those are the limitations that everybody else can see in you except for yourself. So when someone brings them up to your attention, that's a favor that they're giving you. So take it as a gift. Do not resist constructive feedback. Ask more questions and get more details, but don't resist it because they're there just to help you.
Well, thank you, Louis. Yeah, so it was really great. Lulit, do you see if there is something to be added in this question? If not, we can go with the next question.
Not really, but one thing is I would say is really I've like from my own experience, I have both like great performance reviews that their performance reviews that I rated that to be there just because of different personalities even with your manager, it depends. So one thing I would say is really even for myself is just being self-aware, knowing your weaknesses, your strengths, and then honestly, as Louis said, like don't take it personal, but then don't let that performance review, if it's not like something you wanted to hear, discourage you from progressing and moving to the next, because sometimes it's not always about us. It depends on the leadership. Honestly, it has that personal component too that we cannot deny that people bring to the table, whether we like it or not. We have the objectives, the numbers. There are some elements to it. It depends. So just like really be aware of yourselves and your strengths and your weaknesses, and always improve to that. I'm glad be happy work if you have that manager would have really your back and works with you to progress and help you progress. But if not, if you see an issue or resistance, and it's okay with that too, just be confident in yourself and what you bring to the table. That's one thing I would add.
Thank you so much, Lulit. And the second question is also directed to you, Lulit, but before that, I want to tell the participants that if they have questions, they can use the gestures in the Zoom setting below to raise their hands and they can ask their questions. So yeah.
Ahmad, can I add one more thing, please?
Yes, please.
I love the feedback that the other panelists just shared too. It's so important to be self-aware, but I just want to stress one more time that the performance review should not be the first time that you hear feedback. So you really need to engage in the regular feedback loop with your manager, with your teammates, so that you're not waiting all the way to the end for someone to say, oh, by the way, you've had this negative character trait that you've been exhibiting for the past 9 months and no one told you. You don't wait for surprises. Really engage and keep those communication lines open, so that way you receive the feedback and you can act on it. So that come the performance review, it's not that you had 9 months of bad behavior or bad character traits. It's like, hey, you identified opportunities for improvement, and here are the steps that you've taken to improve them, or here are some things that you've done, or even a progression plan that you've developed. So make everything into an opportunity for growth.
Thank you. Okay, so as I say, the second question is directed to Lulit. So the question is, Lulit, did you incorporate mentorship in your professional growth? And if so, what did that look like?
Well, so yes, like both formal and informally, like at the beginning, the concept mentorship was new to me. So, for example, my first job, at some point they start offering, like they would say there's a mentorship, but I did not quite like understand, what it entails. And then also, I wasn't sure about my, career path, so it's all on me. But then I look back and wish I used that opportunity, because it's very important to really also, connect. And then of course there are different ways. There's that mentorship, there's coaching or sponsorship, but then you can always ask and identify what kind of mentorship they're providing, your company's providing. So I haven't used that at the beginning, but then when I went back to school for my graduate studies, I understood what really mentorship meant. And then I found that, from the school. But once I knew that how important it is, I actually started even soliciting, like if one time I saw not even a coworker, she's out of not in my company, but then I've seen her like communication skills, organizational skill, project management skills. So I solicited and asked, like, can you be my mentor? So Yes, short answer is yes. I've incorporated that and it really, really helped me. But then one thing I learned from is like you have to set up a goal, an objective, because you have to be on the driver's seat for that mentorship journey. Because to really make useful of that journey, you need to understand, what you need from that mentorship. Also, being respectful of your mentor's time. It's important to understand what's your goals, what is your objectives. It could be very specific. It could be like project management skill, you want to develop that, or communication skills, or it could be like even, you want to broaden your networking skill, or even like you don't know what's my next move, and I don't know, like we can figure out together. It doesn't always have to have a clear understanding, but also they will help you to kind of pinpoint, listening to you and understand your, what your desires or interests in the future, and then guide you through that. So it's super helpful. And what I would say is like always, even if the company is not offering, just if you see someone, you can always, just tap their shoulder and say, can you be my mentor? And I've seen that people are really happy to do that. Most people enjoy that and even willing to give their time to someone who's a new employee, or even, someone it doesn't have to be in the same company. Like always, a mentor is a great way to, again, network, advance your career, just hear from different opportunities from them. But also it will help you to set up that, very important to set up that goal and objective for your career.
Thank you, Lulit. Yeah, that was such a complete answer. Louis and Miriam, do you want to add something, or if you want to sprinkle some fairy dust into this question?
Oh, Lulit's answer was phenomenal. I totally agree with her. I will just add that early on in my career, when I was much younger, I was pretty quiet. And so I just was like, I'll just put my head down, I'll just work, do my job. And I figured that hard work is really all you needed to succeed. But over time, when you do that, you'll sit back and you'll be your hard worker in your, with your head down, but you will watch as your colleagues will get opportunities and they will pass you by. And so over the years, I realized, like, wait, there might be more to this work game than just working. There might be something to this networking and relationship building with others. And that is so true. I mean, I wish I knew it earlier on. There's working hard and working smart. I don't think I was working smart early on. I think I was just working hard. But there is really a benefits to networking, whether it's a formal or informal, and mentorship. Again, even if the senior leaders or other people within the organization are not really able to give the time for a formal mentorship relationship, just grabbing coffee once in a while, building that network and the relationship, that can really pay dividends for you and your career. One thing that I noticed over time, again, I wish I knew it earlier, but when the leaders are in a room and projects come up and they think about, like, who would be a good person to task this with, or who might be someone that we can send to this conference, they're not going to remember that person in the corner with their head down, just, checking the boxes and doing the work. They're going to remember the person who they have a connection with. And so it's so important to try to make that connection. Don't be like me, like, work smarter. Yes, do the work and be exceptional in the work that you do. But remember that a good big part of this whole work game is really networking and building relationships with your colleagues, with your coworkers, with people within the organization as well, and even outside, because that's where opportunities come. When you're looking for a job and people tell you, you can apply to as many job postings as you see, but a lot of jobs are handed out via networks these days. And when you realize that, that really tells you the power of networking and just relationship building. So that's what I wanted to add to what Lulit said. I totally agree. Mentorship in any form that you can get it is so beneficial. You can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong with mentorship. So please, if the opportunity presents itself, please take it. If it doesn't present itself, you go ask for a coffee or just join them. Or maybe you see someone sitting at the lunch table or something, and they seem to be sitting by themselves. Go join them. Take the opportunity wherever you find it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I would just say, I know we're short on time, but the perspective that I would add is, so yes, 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 and yes, I agree. And I would just say that there's been a lot of research and conversations more recently as the curtain has been lifted in terms of the dynamics in the workplace that produce, a career advancement, and mentorship is one thing and sponsorship is another thing. So mentors can help, but sponsors is what really is going to move you in your career, because a mentor is someone that would have lunch with you, talk with you, give you advice. But a sponsor is the one that is going to talk about you and is going to propose your name for you to have opportunities. So don't, a mentor in itself is not, it's not enough. I think you have to have a mentor and a sponsor. So careful with that. All right, are we moving to the next question?
Yes. So
Ahmed, sorry, just to add, was just 1 minute.
okay, yeah.
All right. So just want to mention that, like, for those introverts like me out there, I don't want to, I know it's now I say, like it's easy, but it's not. It has not been like I do still struggle. Like sometimes I'll be in a room full of people who I would to connect, but then it's not easy for me. It doesn't come as natural. It's just I always have to like prepare and pep talk, a lot of pep talk that I have to do to myself. So just know that, like, yes, it is not easy, but then it's something that, from our experience, that is going to help. Just try to work on it. By no means, I'm not saying that, it's so super easy just to go and even from cultural point of view, I came from like, in my culture when I moved here, it was such hard for me because what we know is, like, as Miriam said, like, work hard, heads down, that someone, your manager, the leadership will observe that and give you that raise or whatever promotion, if they would acknowledge that. No, it's completely different. It is like you have to advocate for yourself, you have to make visible, create that opportunity for yourself, but it's not easy, but you will get there. Just wanted to add.
Well, thank you for pieces of advice. I personally find it very helpful. So the third question is directed to Louis. In your experience, what is the best way to respond to microaggression in the workplace? And how have you handled it in the past?
Yeah, no, great question. So I'm actually going to make a connection with that question. And question number 2, we were talking about the advantages of having a mentor. And one of the advantages that we can have with having a mentor is perspective. So sometimes, if you don't remember anything from what I said tonight, I want you to remember one thing, which is that the way that we look at things, the way that we see things may not be the way things actually are. So we see things, we have interpretation of things, but our interpretation may not always be accurate. So one of the advantages that we have with mentors is that if we develop a relationship of trust where we feel comfortable with a mentor, the first thing that I would advise is to share with your mentor and say, hey, I had this experience at work, here's what happened, and here's my interpretation of what happened. Here's how I felt, and this is what I saw, and this is what I understood from what happened. And then open up your mind to allow for that person to give you their interpretation, because in some cases, what happened may be what you perceived, what you saw, what you felt, what you understood. Sometimes it may not be. And so you have to have the benefit of having a second opinion. And then, if you talk to different people and everybody agrees that what you saw is what it is, then, you can take action. But One of the things that I like to, my background, I've studied a lot of emotional intelligence. And one of the things with emotional intelligence is that emotions can be very powerful and very strong. And when we have a low level of emotional intelligence, we have a strong connection between the emotion and the action. So basically we feel something if we were in a place, if we heard something that offended us, that made us feel bad, and we felt, if we're mad, if we're unhappy, if we are, we have a strong emotion, we can go ahead and react and do something that can cost our career, right? I mean, we can do something in the spirit of a moment with the emotion that then we can basically regret because it may be too late and there may not be a way back from your action. So one of the things with I provide training on emotional intelligence, and one of the things that I advise is that you have to learn to create a buffer between the emotion and the action. So it starts by not reacting immediately to an emotion, but first is identifying the emotion, is kind of self-studying from a self-awareness standpoint. What am I feeling right now? How is it manifesting in my body? Why am I feeling that? Like I said, finding the opportunity to talk to somebody else, kind of understand it and analyze it before you act. And some people will tell you that one of the signs of strong emotional intelligence or a high level of emotional intelligence is that you don't have to act on every emotion that you feel. So after that will be step number one, right? Analyze, the situation, what happened, how you interpret it, talk to somebody else. And then if you come to the conclusion that, something that there was, an act of discrimination, which do happen and they are real. And then I would say the first thing, and it depends how bad it is, right? How grave the situation is. There are instances where someone, let me step back and say, not all of the, discrimination or, offenses or, microaggressions are actually intended in that way by the aggressor, by the person who did it. In many cases, it's a person was just, not really paying attention, was ignorant, didn't understand. So they may say something that offended you, but the person didn't intentionally did it with the intention to hurt you, right? So in those cases, you have to kind of think about the situation, analyze, and there are instances where, depending on the situation, you can come in and say, hey, Marianne, here is I, would like the opportunity to talk with you. Hey, this morning when we were in the meeting, you had this comment and here's what I heard and here's how I felt, right? And give an opportunity for the person to say, there are instances when the person will say, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that, I'm sorry about what I said. Give me an opportunity, please, to explain what I meant. And this is what I meant and this and that. And that can be resolved there, right? If it's something kind of, minor, if it's either a repeat offender, somebody that is all the time kind of, it's just a behavior in the person that is, offending and, repeatedly, that's a different situation. Also, it depends on kind of like the gravity of the situation, right? If it's something that, it's not easy for you to kind of let go, then my advice, and every situation is different. Obviously, I'm not a labor lawyer, but I know that it would be recommended, and I always tell my team is start with me as your manager. So start with your manager, go to your manager and say, hey, here is the situation, here's what I experienced, what do you think, and this and that, and kind of hear the other person, because it's also important to know what kind of support do you have before you move forward. Because if you have the perception that something happened, but as you talk to different people and you explain the situation, you don't really get a lot of traction, you don't have a lot of support, then you're kind of on your own. And that's a hard battle to win. And if you find that you're in an organization and in these situations, you're constantly on your own, then it may be time to kind of explore other options, because there's nothing worse than being in an organization when people don't have your back. So just a few thoughts.
Well, thank you, Luis. Yeah. I will also consider what you said, that we have to think about our emotions first before acting on that. And yeah, I will consider that. Thank you. And now I want to ask the participants that please ask your questions to the panel if you have any question. Does anybody have a question? Nobody?
You can wait a few minutes or you can put them in the chat. I know in the last couple of weeks. You've had lots of comments and questions, and you've got some amazing experts here in front of you tonight.
Okay. We will wait for you. You can ask your question or you can put it in the chat.
Well, I'm going to ask a question. Oh, Keaton, yay, thank you. What's your question?
I want to say this is a wonderful, all your inputs. I would like to, coming from South Sudan, I worked in an organization that is American founded, and we had a great system in place for employees' performance. However, where I am, I have failed to understand whether we do have that. Because honestly, for the last 2 years, we have been, looks like the system, it's either there or it's not there, and I don't see myself growing. My question is, if you happen to be an organization, in an organization just like where I am, and you don't see a good staff performance system in place, for you to grow, what do you have to do as an individual?
So Eden is breaking up a little bit. I don't know if our panelists heard. I think what I heard was if you're in an organization where you don't feel like you're growing, and Eden, I'm going to need you, you can put it in the chat if I'm interpreting this right. If you're in an organization where you're not growing and your management isn't supporting you, what are suggestions that our panelists have?
I can go first. Hidden, if your organization doesn't, if you feel like they don't have a strong employee progression, career progression established, or you don't feel like they have a support structure to help your growth, what I would do is first look at what resources are available within the organization. Are there any training opportunities within the organization? Are there any, perhaps what you're seeing could be limited to your specific department. So maybe there are other departments within the organization that you could transfer to find other growth opportunities, or perhaps work under other managers that provide different opportunities. So those options could exist. It could also, I don't know exactly your situations, so I'm just trying to think about different potential situations. If you're in an organization that's small, for example, I've been in a very small organization where I was the quality manager and there was no room to grow. There was nowhere else for me to grow to. There was no progression plan. There was no support. There was nothing. And so in a situation like that, you may have to look at what resources are available to enhance your growth. And that growth might be outside your department. That growth might be outside the organization. But since you're doing that searching, you're taking control of your own career path. You're not waiting for them to develop it for you because you're saying that framework isn't there. If the organization offers tuition reimbursement, for example, take advantage of that and see whether that helps you open up yourself to other opportunities. If there's a potential to attend different courses, take advantage of that. If there's a potential to attend seminars or conventions, take advantage of any opportunity that you can using the resources within the organization. And if you're in a situation where there's absolutely no resource within the organization to leverage, you may need to do this on your own. Like look outside the organization. What opportunities are there? But the key here, though, is you taking charge of your own career progression. Because if the framework isn't there, and if within the organization they don't have that for you, you have to take charge and say, okay, this is where I want to go, or these are places I want to explore. And then you start charting your path to exploring those, leveraging the resources within or outside. So I hope you find that to be helpful. I don't know your specific example, but I hope you find that to be helpful.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Miriam. Yeah, I hope Miriam answered the question for you, Eden. I see Zahid's hands up. So Zahid, could you please ask your question?
Thank you, Sami Ali, for the presentation, and again, sorry for the interruption. I'm home having several kids, you know.
That's okay.
So, yeah,
We love hearing the babies in the backgrounds.
yeah,
Totally fine.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for the great discussion, Mariam, Lulit, and Louis. My question is directly referring to the, like, we are receiving a training with Prosperity Ready about the degree immigrant. We are job seekers in searching for a different kind of jobs. We have a good qualification from like foreign countries. Everybody is a master degree or bachelor, or they have special expertise, each and every one of them. But as you pass all the tough situation and work with different managers and faced with different scenarios, but which kind of job we have to search? Like, it is an entry-level job? Because one question is that I have. Second, we do have like a good experience, but we do not have a US certification or US experience. And it's very challenging while you are applying to such organization that or industries that they are related to our expertise or experience. So we do not receive any kind of feedback from them. Even they are not give us any, do not tell us what we have to do or what is the problem that we face, like with the documentation or with the qualification or something else. So these, like, I have 3 questions in one question. So I just want to have your feedback regarding this. Thank you.
Okay, I can get us started again, and if is that okay, or Luis or Lulit, if you want to go ahead, I can wait. Okay. Zahid, I don't know your specific career path, but I will say that I hear you 100%. Like most of us here are immigrants, and we have faced a similar situation. The thing, a couple of things that I want to say. Throw the darts out there. Throw. Don't give up. Don't give up. Send your resume out. Keep sending. I don't care how many rejections or how many like crickets you get back where you get no response at all. It doesn't matter. Just keep sending, because it costs you nothing to just keep applying. Keep applying, keep applying, keep applying. Somebody will take a chance on you and will give you an opportunity to get your foot in the door. The other thing I will say is that to answer your question around the certifications, because you may have foreign certifications, depending on the career path that you're looking at, there are some careers that do place more credibility on US-based certifications. So depending on your path, please just explore whether there are certifications that could enhance what you already have, but they would be recognized here. So if say you were an architect or something with a degree from somewhere else, just see whether there are any certifications here that the industry recognizes that would enhance what you already have. Sorry about the echo.
Yeah, Miriam, we can't hear you now because you muted. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were echoing and you muted, but now I think you're back now.
It wasn't me echoing, but somebody muted me.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay. What I was saying is, before you jump and say, oh, let me go get a new master's degree or another master's degree in the US, because that is a financial commitment too. Before you take that leap, first look at the industry and look into any certifications that may be prevalent or useful to help you enhance what you already have. One more thing I want to add is please look into your specific industry groups, any specific industry groups that you can connect with, you can network with, attend conferences or something. Build a network within that space that is your field, because that is how you're going to get your foot in the door as well. Do not give up. It is hard, even for people who have degrees from here. You may send out 100 resumes and only get 5 callbacks. Don't give up. Someone out there will take a chance on you. The cost of sending out your resume and applying, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't cost you that much. So go ahead and put in the work, because your opportunity is coming.
Yeah, I know we have very little time, so I'll just add a few perspective. I think, totally agree with Mariam's feedback and perspective, absolutely. One thing to think about is think of your value as a candidate, as an employee, in terms of organizational effectiveness. So sometimes we think, well, I have this degree, I have a master's degree, I have a PhD, and you're thinking of the value. You're thinking of your value as your education, like how many years of education you have or how many years of experience you have. But you have to think of it more in the context of organizational effectiveness. So someone that may have a PhD and many years of experience in another country may come here and not be very effective organizationally, because you don't know the culture here, you don't know the culture of your organization, you may not understand the language well, you may not know the structure of the right. So then I think that there's a mismatch between the value that you're giving yourself and the value that the organization may put on you. So what I would say is, I think that there is one of the values that I believe in is humility. And that can make you humble. So, understanding, hey, yeah, I have all of these years of experience and I have all of this education somewhere else, but, what is my value here? And there are instances where starting at a job, I myself, there was a company that I wanted to work at, and I accepted a position that was lower. Where I basically kind of took a step back and took a lower position, because that allowed me for the I've done actually that more than once. And then, once you come in and you enter, then you progressively, find the ways to show your value, and then you can get back up to where you think that you should be. So those are options, and every case is different, right? So there's not like a magic formula that is going to give you the answer to every situation. Every situation is different. You have to think about it in a unique way. But I would just say, don't think of the value that you have in terms of the years of education, of the years of experience you have. Think more in terms of what effect, what value you have for the organization from the organizational effectiveness standpoint. And sometimes it is an option to take a job that may not be as high as you think, just so that you can go into certain opportunities, right? So something to think about.
Well, thank you, Luis. It's 9 o'clock. I also want to be respectful of people's time, but I will have one last question if you could, one of you could answer it quickly. Beketa said that, is it a good idea to ask your boss or somebody on a higher position to help them in their work, or show us their daily duties and how they do it, as a strategy to prepare myself for the possible future job and create an image of a skilled person in case opportunity comes?
To ask your boss, like that's a person that is working, and so whether it would be okay to ask your boss to help you to get ready for like a better opportunity. Was that the question?
Well, it was to ask somebody on a higher position or my boss to help them in their work, or show us their daily duties and how they do it.
Yeah, just quickly, I don't want to monopolize, as I know I spoke a lot already, but I would say it depends. The answer is it depends, unfortunately, because in an ideal world, you should be able to ask your boss for help, and your work, your boss should help you, and that shouldn't have any negative repercussions in your work. However, I do know from my practice that there are many employees that have experienced that they have asked for help from their bosses, only to be surprised then later in their performance review that their bosses will actually bring that up and say, hey, you were not able to do this by yourself. I had to help you, basically, right? Which is unfair. But so I would just say, you have to learn about what kind of relationship you have with your boss, whether you trust your boss, and if your boss is trustworthy. And then if your boss is trustworthy and you feel comfortable and you have a good relationship, then that would be the ideal scenario to definitely ask your boss for help. And you can ask, I mean, you can ask your boss, hey, I need some help. Is this, would you be willing to help me? Would this, would this work against me later? And, if your boss says no, then they cannot put it on your performance review later, because you would say, hey, I asked you, you said no, so anyway.
I read oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Louis is right, but it's just, again, I think that comes back to, I think, again, emotional intelligence, right? Knowing your environment, knowing the organization culture is very important. Paying attention, you can get a sense of, what is the culture? Is it really supportive? There's a trust in there. You can figure that out early on, and then, change accordingly, or strategize, what you can get from that company while you're there, from that department, and so that you get that advantage from that. And also, just to add a little bit from our earlier Zad question is, it's just wanting to I wanted to emphasize, because it's just really me, because that's exactly where I was in 15 years ago, and I can still feel the feeling. And really, yes, it's easy to say, yeah, I mean, I can say don't give up, but then really work on yourself, your attitude, because for me, what was really was not just played as negative for myself is, I took it I was upset. Mostly I was upset about a lot of things. I was upset about how come they don't see my experience, how come they don't understand, I'm working hard, they can see that I'm qualified, I'm not getting the right job because I was overqualified for the job that I was in. But then now I understand that was not the right approach. Really, it doesn't change. It doesn't make anything. I mean, that was not the point. The point should have been, I should have really straightened my attitude. It's not easy. I understand, we have that bills to pay, we need the money. Yes, we'll go there, we'll show up, and then we'll do our best. But really, being positive, and then what's strategizing, as Miriam said earlier, what are the resources I can use right now here, even though I'm overqualified for this job? What can I use the resources, the things that they have here, so that I can advance myself in the future? It's the reality, we don't have the US accreditation, or we don't have the US document or certificate. I mean, that's the reality. So upsetting about that is not going to help. How can I use what trainings can I use? What certificate, without getting into a big financial commitment? What are the certificates, or what can I show off that I have some skills in the US? It's mostly not the skill, as Louis said, to the organization culture. Am I kind of seamlessly, be in the organization culture, and then work together, talk the talk, the language, it has its own language. If it's incorporated, are you using the same language? And also networking. Yes, it's important. It doesn't have to be in your organization only. Any trainings, here, Prosperity Ready. That's why I support this organization. It's amazing. I wish I had this platform to understand, to learn from other immigrants that they face. I was clueless. I didn't even understand what I was feeling, really. I didn't even put the name on it, what I'm feeling at that moment. I was lost. So even having this is a great opportunity, understanding, listening it from us, and this is a great support. Also, there are other networking, just jump in, join in, learn, listen, or how they talk, how they communicate, that's its own culture, and its own business, I can say, to explore. So just try to make it fun and something to explore, adventure, but don't let it hold on your expectation, and change your attitude, because it's hard. I understand it's hard, but then there are opportunities. There are people out there, they can see you, and it's a good time. Honestly, 10 years ago, it wasn't like this. Now there's a lot of opportunities and understanding for immigrants and people of color to really open up and join. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Lulit. Lisa, I think we are 7 minutes past our time. So do you have to say anything before we end this session?
Do you have time for me to just quickly address Beketa's question, please?
Yes, definitely. We have a
Go
lot of
for
time.
it.
If you have
Yep,
time.
we'll do that and then we're just gonna end and we'll do all of our admin in a follow-up
Sorry.
email.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
When I read Beketa's question in the chat, it sounds like the request is for a job shadowing opportunity. You want to ask your boss whether you can shadow them to learn more and to prepare you for the next role. So when I read that question, my thoughts are quite similar to what Luis said early too. You probably don't want to start with your boss, because chances are your boss is going to be like, wait, you want my job? Then where am I going to go?
Exactly.
So you probably don't want to start with your boss, but you can certainly do that with other people within the organization, shadow them. It's job enrichment. You're learning more skills, which may be valuable to you in your current role, may be valuable to you in another role within the organization. But I would not recommend that you talk to your boss, that you ask your boss that just yet, because to Luis's point, not everyone has the best of intentions. If that boss is like, okay, look, this is my position, I'm not going anywhere, and then you show up and you say, I'd like to shadow you to learn your job because maybe I want your job next year, your boss is going to be like, wait, so where am I going? So they may not necessarily have the same objective in mind when you go to them with this job shadowing request. It's a phenomenal thought, though, because that to me shows that you want to take charge of your own career. And that is the most important thing we've been trying to say all evening, is that you need to advocate for yourself. You need to know where you want to go and then chart the path to get there. So to answer your question about job shadowing, you might look to other leaders within the organization to shadow, but I wouldn't start with your boss. Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. And thank you as always. This group is just so engaged and we've had so many great conversations over the last 8 weeks. And I can't believe it's going to come to a close soon. We're not going to do our final slides. AJ will send out our housekeeping. But everybody get ready, because we're going to talk about interviewing and negotiating offers next week. And then our employers are coming to meet all of you. So to those of you who know each other who aren't here tonight, get them here on the 21st and the 28th when we wrap up. Because I want all of you, you're amazing. All of our participants are amazing. And we want to introduce all of you to our employer partners so that you are ready to move to that next step. And thank you, Miriam and Lulit and Luis, for your time tonight. It's just been so enriching to have you here. So thank you very much. And everybody have a great night. If you have more questions, I am confident that Luis and Miriam and Lulit would be happy to connect with you on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn, which we've been talking about since week 3. So connect with them on LinkedIn, build your LinkedIn network, and this is a way for you all to continue the conversation. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Lisa, can I say something in the last minute? It's gonna be
Yes.
super
Oh, hi,
quick.
Reina. Yes, hello. You made it to Monterey.
Yeah, I'm Monterey, and I'm sharing the office with my little brother. He's in the class, so he's next to me.
I know I keep seeing him in the background. You
I
need to
know, sorry for
move
that,
your
but
background so we can see him.
yeah, so I want to share very quickly. So I make my notes, so don't forget, we was talking about discrimination, and sometimes we say discrimination is because we say that last week, it was because it's ignorance. And right now I have the opportunity to be in different boards, and 2 of them is just 100% white people. And that gives me the opportunity to talk as a Latin person, with my perspective. And I think everybody here is an immigrant, so everybody have the same opportunity like me. If you are from other countries, you have the opportunity to share your experience
you are the face of your community. So yeah, so I just want to share that last time when somebody is gonna ask something, they say, yeah, I have a difficult question, and I say, yeah, some question is gonna be sound like a racist, I know, but for me it's okay if that's gonna help you to help my community. So sometimes hard question, it's in the good way to help our community. So sometimes if you have to handle in that way, you have to learn how to do it. And I think all the comments from the last session and this session grew up that point for me. So thank you so much, guys, and thanks for the last minute. Good to see you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm just glad that everyone feels confident about contributing and sharing their observations. So thank you, Raina. And we will see everybody next Tuesday. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Thanks for the
you.
invitation.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Marianne.
Thank you.
Reina, bye, Luli.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lisa.